As I was looking for something new to do for this week's video, I considered Kent Hovind. Do you think that since America took Ken Ham off the hands of Australia, and Chris Attlee, atheist pastor, has firmly told me that there are no takebacks, that we could maybe give Hovind to Australia as a fair exchange?
Hi there, my name's Chris, also known as the Atheist Pastor, and in case you weren't aware, I'm from Australia. Recently, there's been some suggestions made to us here in Australia that I would like to address. Now, first of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our friends in America for taking, well, and keeping, for some unknown reason, Ken Ham. I know that you tried to return him, but as I did mention, we do have a no returns policy. So I just really want to thank everyone in America for being such good sports and accepting that. However, recently some suggestions have been made that us here in the great Commonwealth of Australia should do a bit of a deal, and a bit of payback might happen. It's been suggested that we should take Kent Hovind, as payment for America keeping Ken Ham. Well, I've spoken to the government. I've had meetings at the highest level, and officially, I am very, very pleased to let all of my friends in America know that no, we're not taking Kent. You've got to be kidding, right? I mean, seriously. I mean, have you seen his Hawaiian shirts? He has a dinosaur adventureland. I mean, have you heard some of the weird stuff that guy says? No. Look, Australia is a lovely place. We have killer animals, and we'd rather be here than anywhere. That tells you how good we have it here. Please don't send us Kent. And if you do, just be prepared. We'll be sending him back on the very first plane home. On behalf of the people of the Commonwealth of Australia, I would like to thank the people of America for keeping Ken and Kent and never sending them back.
So we Americans are stuck with him. Unless maybe we can pawn him off on the Brits. Any takers? Critical cripple?
Hovind. Kent Hovind. I'm sorry we couldn't possibly take him. Isn't he a convicted felon? I could recommend somewhere we used to send them.
I tried. Hello and welcome. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get notices of future videos. Well, if we Americans are stuck with Kent Hovind, I guess I'll add my voice to the takedowns of him. Looking over his videos, I checked out his most recent Wakim Atheist video to see who he had taken on. It's Suzanne, Wakim. I had never heard of Suzanne, so first I looked for a YouTube channel for her. Kent usually focuses on popular YouTube atheists. Suzanne does have a channel, but it has very little content, and what's there is just personal stuff. I went back to Kent's video. It turns out he's actually trying to debunk a textbook. Specifically, he has chosen chapter 9.3 of LibreText's biology textbook. LibreText is an online source for textbooks. I was trying to figure out what level this textbook was intended to teach. I couldn't find anything specifying a recommended grade level, but it appears to be about a 7th grade level book. So what does Kent have against a children's textbook? Let's take a look.
Good evening, folks. Kent Hovind here and the crew at Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama. Slightly sweltering today. July 22nd, 2020. Gave a bunch of tours today. How many got to go on the tour today? Anybody? And Paul, welcome back to reality and sanity. And the whole country's gone nuts over this fake COVID thing, haven't they? It's unreal. Yeah. And
I think people have done research, and the death rate has not changed from any other year.
Right. They label if you got a motorcycle accident, it's COVID-19. No matter what you die of, because the hospital gets a bonus.
Yeah.
It's all money. Yeah, I would really check into that. Anyway.
Okay, Kent. I will check into that. Here's what I found. First, you claim the virus is fake, yet hospitals are full or near capacity in Texas and Florida. Why is that? If the virus was completely fake, why are people dying from it all over the world and not just here where the hospitals are supposedly getting a bonus for saying someone has COVID? Even President Trump is finally admitting that the virus needs to be taken seriously. Let's take a look at some of the research on those death figures that you claim are fake. When I reached this point in my script, I began my research. What I found was nothing short of astounding. So, as much as I hate to say it, thank you, Kent Hovind, for the education that I received in making this video. Of course, I didn't actually learn anything directly from you, as what you call science is just garbage, but what I learned in the process of proving you wrong was quite valuable. I'm going to quote extensively from this article that I found. It is well written and it is too succinct to cut much from it and still catch what it has to say. According to MedPage Today, in an article written by Judy Melanik, MD, a forensic pathologist, at an April 7 news conference, Deborah Birx, MD, the response coordinator for the White House Coronavirus Task Force, said, "There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death." That statement might make you conclude that the United States COVID-19 data will be skewed to count many people who have died with COVID-19 as an irrelevant background condition, inflating the numbers up from the count of those who clearly died from the effects of the virus. Yet the New York Times, the Washington Post, and many other news agencies have reported stories showing that the tally of COVID-19 deaths in the United States and elsewhere in the world is almost certainly an undercount. They cite the epidemiological data showing that the overall numbers of deaths during the months of the pandemic have far outpaced the death rate during the same period in recent past years, and postulate that the lack of available testing might be a reason why COVID-19 would not make it onto a death certificate. So which one is it? Are we undercounting or overcounting? Can we trust the numbers? It's complicated. In the United States, most death investigation systems are funded and organized on a county basis across hundreds of agencies. Early in the pandemic, when testing was not readily available and community spread was present but not yet recognized, it is likely that, in some areas, patients with underlying disease and poor health may have died from an undiagnosed COVID-19 infection. Other regions, the ones that responded to the outbreak by developing widespread testing, might be swabbing every decedent regardless of the circumstances of death, either as a public health screening program to gather data on community spread, or in order to protect morgue workers from an infectious disease exposure during an autopsy. Regardless of the availability of testing at their disparate death investigation agencies, medical examiners and coroners across the country are guided by the National Vital Statistics System, NVSS, guidelines for death certification. A death certificate has two sections where the doctor who investigated the case will write the cause of death. Part 1 is the underlying disease or injury that starts the lethal sequence of events. Part 2 is for any underlying conditions that the decedent had that made the death more likely. The NVSS guidelines state, if COVID-19 played a role in the death, this condition should be specified on the death certificate. In many cases, it is likely that it will be the underlying cause of death, as it can lead to various life-threatening conditions, such as pneumonia and acute respiratory distress syndrome. In some cases, survival from COVID-19 can be complicated by pre-existing chronic conditions, especially those that result in diminished lung capacity, such as COPD or asthma. These medical conditions do not cause COVID-19, but can increase the risk of contracting a respiratory infection and death. So these conditions should be reported in Part 2 and not in Part 1. So pathologists don't certify deaths as due to COVID-19 based solely on a positive swab. We get a clinical history of shortness of breath, chest pain, fever, cough. Yes, it is possible that someone could be an asymptomatic carrier and die of heart disease, but in those cases we would certify the cause of death as heart disease and document the COVID-19 infection as a significant contributing factor for several reasons. Number 1, COVID-19 can affect the heart via myocarditis, pericarditis, or the formation of microthrombi. Number 2, it's possible that the death may not have happened without the stress of medical resources caused by the pandemic. That's one of the reasons why the death toll in Italy is so bad. Their otherwise excellent healthcare system was grievously overloaded by a huge wave of COVID-19 patients. People who would have survived heart attacks during normal times died without medical intervention because they couldn't make it to the hospital or because the hospital couldn't treat them in time to save them. On some level, it may be due to some natural manner of deaths being attributed to the virus that could be seen as inflating the official COVID-19 numbers. But a failure to acknowledge and examine the pandemic's effect on the diagnosis and treatment of other natural deaths would also be problematic from a public health perspective. To quote Dr. Ed Donahue, a forensic pathology colleague at Georgia Bureau of Investigation, no matter how these deaths are currently being attributed after this pandemic terminates, an excellent approximation of the true fatality rate of COVID-19 deaths can be made by the calculation of the excess mortality for the period. This calculation was very helpful during the 1995 Chicago heat wave. Almost certainly, because of the scarcity of testing and other resources, we will find that the number of COVID-19 deaths has been grossly underestimated. The final death toll is going to depend on multiple factors: the density of the population, availability of testing, genetic factors, both host and virus, the public health response, and the robustness of the healthcare system. A soldier in the heat of battle can't think strategically about the outcome of the wider war. The death toll of COVID-19 is not going to be accurate until epidemiologists and statisticians have time to crunch the numbers. But the excess stresses on our healthcare system are clearly evident in countless first-hand reports from emergency rooms and ICUs in our hardest-hit regions. The challenges of formulating a real-time body count must not be offered as an excuse to abandon or dial back the mitigation measures that we know are working to keep whole populations alive and safe. We are slogging through a slow, brutal, worldwide mass fatality event. Whatever the final tally, it will be a terrible one. I read updates on the virus daily. To deny that people in this country are dying from the virus is nothing short of asinine, intentional blindness to the facts. It is true that we don't know the full extent of the impact, and we won't for some time. But only a complete idiot could read any of the news and not see that we have a major problem. The next segment of the video sounds more like a staff meeting for his adventure park than anything intended to have public appeal. He asks for volunteers to lead tour groups, and he later in the video asks them to help build tree houses. I'll skip those parts for you. But it led me to wonder if the park is even open. They were not. The website doesn't say anything about them being closed, but when I pulled it up on Google Maps, it indicates that they were closed despite it being during their normal operating hours when I searched. I also called, and I got a recording of Hovind giving me a few options of extensions that I could get, but no one actually answers the phone. When I pressed 1 for visitor information, I got the option of leaving a message so they could call me back. It looks like a fake virus may have closed down your park, Kent.
Tonight, Whack an Atheist with Dr. Kent, the science gent, where a former evolutionist takes a look at the silly claims of evolution.
This sounds familiar. Think Kent might be copying from...
Welcome to Apologia, where a former Christian takes a look at the claims of Christians.
We've been looking high and low for one functioning brain cell in those who claim there's no God, and we all came from a dot of nothing. I cannot comprehend the stupidity these people stoop to. Amen. They can be incredibly intelligent in other areas. I mean, it's amazing. I had students, they were like off the chart smart in one area, but they couldn't tie their own shoes.
Could that be because the only school you ever taught at was an elementary school? According to National Center for Science Education, Hovind's undergraduate degree is from Midwestern Baptist College, where the objective from the soul science education offered from the MBC Department of Education is to learn to present to an elementary class the universe which God has marvelously created. As minimal as that may seem for a science education, Hovind's graduate credentials from Patriot University are even less substantial. PU was formerly in Colorado Springs, Colorado, but it is now in Alamos, Colorado, in a house near College Heights Baptist Church. The street is the residential address of PU's Executive Director of External Studies, Dr. Lonnie Skinner. The bulletin indicates how a university could simply relocate to another town. There is no faculty, and credit is offered for life experience and ministry evaluation. The courses, workbooks, audio tapes, and videotapes can be completed in 2 to 4 weeks. Tuition is a voluntary monthly free will offering. The only graduate science course is SC 701, Biblical Basis of Modern Science.
You guys who might be really brilliant in some area, but you really believe you came from a dot of nothing. Think about it. Okay. Whack an Atheist is fun. We take real science and try to get those who have this wild SpongeBob imagination to stop and think, you really believe all of Mount Everest fit in a dot smaller than a period on a page? I mean, you really believe that? You believe all the Pacific Ocean fit in a dot?
Let's hear some real science then, Kent. So far, all we have is your incredulity. He goes on like this on another topic, which I'll skip, to get to the meat of the video.
Even small children can learn to spot how stupid evolution is and whack them back down with truth and real science. 6-2, enter. Whack an Atheist. We're going to whack them gently in Christian love. We only use real science, which is things you can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. It does not include evolution because that is not part of science. It's a religious worldview. You're welcome to believe anything you want, but it's not science. Okay, sorry. So the game is simple. If you atheists keep your head down, you don't get whacked. Not complicated at all. Stick your head up, say something dumb like you think you came from a rock and are related to a monkey, or a gorilla, or orangutan, or baboon, or... you might get whacked back down. The winner of today's Whack an Atheist prize is Suzanne Wakim from Butte College. I'm sure it's Butte, but...
Kent demonstrates that he knows it's Butte, but prefers to mock the college and call it Butte. Considering this is the college where Kent got his advanced degree, PU, glass houses, Kent? Glass houses.
From Butte College in Sacramento, Sacatomatos, California. Suzanne, congratulations. You wrote an article somebody sent to me that... Do I need to see that?
I don't know.
Okay.
You want to see it?
I believe he's dead, right? You sent him to heaven? Okay. Yeah. This is Alabama. We get roaches here in Alabama. We get big ones. I saw one of the kids riding one yesterday. Okay. Suzanne Wakim did an article about evidence for evolution. Now, Suzanne, We'd love to see you. You teach this stuff. Apparently, you've been teaching it at Butt College for a while. Now, it said it was also written by Mandeep Grewal. I don't know who that is. I tried to figure who is Mandeep Grewal. Well, I don't even know if it's a woman or a man. There's Mandeep. Is that a man's name or a woman's name? Mandeep? I don't know. Sorry, Mandeep. I don't know who you are. I couldn't figure it out. But I'm going to blame Suzanne Wakim for writing this article.
He says he can't tell who the other author of the article, Mandeep Grewal, is. But if you just Google it, it's not an uncommon name. However, if you check the faculty at Butte College, it's obviously this woman. Is there someone that can teach Kent how to use the internet?
She said there is evidence for evolution. This is a biology class that she teaches at Butte University. She said, a horse is a horse, of course, of course. Really? The evolution of the horse. This drawing was created in 1848. But it's likely you can recognize the animal it depicts as a horse. How many of you can recognize it as a horse? Look at that. How old are you? You're 7, right? Yes. Can you recognize that as a horse? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, you're 29? Yeah. Can you recognize that as a horse? Yeah, horse is the horse. He's a little slow, but okay. Although horses haven't changed that much since this drawing was made, they have a long evolutionary history during which they changed significantly. How do we know? The answer lies in the fossil record. Now, Miss Wakim, I'm going to try to explain a couple things to you. There is no such thing as a fossil record. There isn't. There's a bunch of fossils. We got a lot of them here, but there's no record. When you find a fossil like this clamp, you will notice a couple things right away. One, it does not talk.
Just what does Kent think the fossil record is? A vinyl record? Is that why he's saying the fossil record doesn't talk? He says there is no fossil record, but then he acknowledges that fossils exist and he has seen some. A fossil record is a group of fossils which have been analyzed and arranged chronologically and in taxonomic order. That's it.
2, it does not have a date stamped on it. It does not say made by a clam in 48 million BC in Taiwan. They don't say that. There is no fossil record. They make up the numbers and all this kind of stuff. We'll talk about that in a minute.
It would be nice if fossils did have date stamps, but they do leave plenty of evidence for people who are willing to do the work of sifting through them to figure out how old they are and how they came about.
About that in a minute. Her article goes on to say, evolution of the horse. The fossil record, Miss Wakim, there isn't one, okay, reveals how horses evolved. No, it does not. It shows they died. They wouldn't be there as a fossil if they didn't die. That's all you know about a fossil. It died. You can't prove it had any kids. You certainly can't prove it had different kids. How do they get by with teaching this stuff at Butte University in a taxpayer-funded school? Okay.
No one is saying anything about any particular offspring of this horse. This is a frequent argument made by Kent that makes absolutely no sense. He's under the impression that unless there is a direct chain of ancestry that shows every member of the chain, we can't know anything about ancestry. Most creationists accept that DNA testing can be used to determine ancestry. Not Kent. When I reached this point in the video script, I got stuck. Not because debunking the science of Kent Hovind became too difficult, but because it became too easy. What's the point? It's like arguing with a 2-year-old.
They can listen to me. Like I do this all the time, and if I go out at the house or to the door, Matthias has his toys, and then Matthias has all his toys.
Okay, but I have to yell at you guys.
Okay, Linda, listen, Linda, listen.
Okay, what?
Like everything they do.
Okay.
Okay, then what?
Then you're not listening to me.
Then you're not listening to me.
I asked you not to do something.
Linda, but listen to me. Look at.
To get at what is really going on, you need to first look at the direction that Kent normally takes. Kent usually chooses which atheist to go after for his Wakin' Atheist videos because of their popularity. He tries to draw on the popularity of mostly young atheists that he attacks.
I looked at Rachel's website the other night, her YouTube channel. She's kept her head down for a long time on evolution. Good job, Rachel. Keep talking about makeup and how you don't like people's poetry except your own and how you like your dog. Go for it, okay?
But the point that he's trying to make here is just empty and meaningless.
It's cool. Okay, the lineage that led to modern horses grew taller over time. You are making up a story, Miss Wakim. You don't know that. Just because you can arrange them in some kind of order doesn't mean anything. And just because you think, well, this layer's found on top, that doesn't mean it's younger. If the top layer's younger, where did it come from? Outer space or something? All the layers were here, they were shuffled by the flood. This lineage also developed longer molar teeth and degeneration of the outer phalanges on the feet. So it went from four-toed down to one-toed. The horse today has a one-toed hoof, right? You're making up a story. There is no fossil record. There's a bunch of fossils indicating rapid burial. How many animals died today, do you think, in the whole world? Millions. Tens of millions. How many are going to turn to fossils? None. It doesn't happen. They have to be buried quickly in mud. There's lots of fossils. It's not a lack of fossils. It's an assumption that this took place. Zebra stallion, donkey mare, they crossbreed all sorts of different ways. But you know, they never crossbreed a horse with a cockroach. Have you noticed that? Or a pine tree. See, this would be called the horse kind. Stripeless zebra baffles the experts. Forgot to put his PJs on. You know, the Kentucky Derby has, how much money is spent trying to get faster horses for the Kentucky Derby, would you guess? Many millions of dollars, right? Well, the average winning speed back in the early 1900s was 127 seconds. Today it's 123 seconds. After spending millions and millions of dollars, they dropped it down from 4 seconds. But even back in the old days, they got some good times, just like today. Once in a while, you get a horse that you just can really go, right? Look, you guys in the Kentucky Derby, let me explain. If horse evolution really happened, it's very simple. Breed wings on the horse and fly around the track in 12 seconds. You get the prize.
Reality check. He's just a sad old man seeking desperately for attention. I'm so sorry, Kent. I do pity you. It's depressing to see someone trying so hard to get attention that they sink into madness. Unfortunately, there are still people who follow him.
Because if there were matter but no space, where would you put it?
Because if you have matter but no space, where would you put it?
If there were matter and space but no time, when would you put it?
And if you have matter and space but no time, when would you put it?
You cannot have time, space, or matter independently. They have to come into existence simultaneously.
See, you cannot have time, space, and matter independently. They need to come into existence at the same time.
The Bible answers that in 10 words.
He answered it in 10 words in the Bible.
In the beginning, there's time. God created the heaven, there's space, and the earth, there's matter.
In the beginning, there's time. God created the heavens, there's space, and the earth, there's matter.
His son Eric has Creation Today ministry. He's essentially a clone of his dad, repeating his dad's material, often verbatim.
Here's a picture of a coral reef. You know, the largest coral reef in the world is off the coast of Australia. It's called the Great Barrier Reef.
Guess what? The Great
Based on a
Barrier Reef has been
20-year
growing
study, they
for
said the reef
about
is less than 4,200 years old.
4,200 years.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Today, the oceans are 3.6% salt. They could have done that in less than 5,000 years.
Who's they? Poseidon and Triton?
Oceans today are 3.6% salt. They could easily go from freshwater to 3.6% salt in less than 5,000 years.
Oh.
Eric has a successful YouTube channel, but hasn't posted anything new in 5 months. Most likely because he is now charging to view his videos, calling them webinars. He started with a $50 price tag on most of them, but they now say, name your price. Creationism is going the way of the buggy whip. The only market for it is among the eccentric and people looking for a laugh. That's a good thing. Its time is over. Proof of evolution is just too overwhelming to be denied any longer. It isn't a question of worldview or religion. There are plenty of people who embrace both science and religion. Kent received a donation of land for the dinosaur adventure park that he has. Perhaps he could just turn it into a retreat for his grandkids and enjoy them in his declining years. Eric and other followers need to find a new focus as well. I will say this video has turned in a direction that I never anticipated. The only reason I didn't scrap it in the middle was when I came to see how truly pitiful Hovind has become, and because there was merit to the beginning portion of this video. Because I think that there is also value in coming to see Hovind for what he has become, it's time to let him fade into memory. Look for new horizons and live your life.